What a privilege it is to be here, and thank you for the invitation to be here. We have been thoroughly taken care of. Our hosts have done a wonderful job of making us comfortable, and the class is amazing. The facility is amazing. We've taught all across this country, and I'm telling you, this is for real. Don't have facilities like this where the camera works and the image, there's multiple viewing ports for the students, so they're not like standing up trying to figure out what you're doing. It's right there. I'm just so impressed. Sound system, everything is ready to go when we come in the morning. It's such a wonderful experience to be able to come in and share what we know and what we do in an environment like this. So thank you so much for all your hard work at keeping this facility top notch. I'm telling you, it's the best facility I've taught in, and well, you don't need to know where we've done that. It is really nice. Students are great. I just can't tell you how much I'm enjoying teaching this class. It's really cool. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to announce the winners, but I'd like to tell you and talk a little bit about the pieces and talk about the qualities of that piece. But I want to be clear about something. When you're in a show, we talk about winners and losers and all that kind of stuff, but just the fact that you're putting work in a show is monumental. We formed a company, Sue and I, my wife, called Peace, Love, Art. And we did that so that I could get my art out into the world, and also I could teach. It was a vehicle for us to be able to do things that we think make a difference in this world. We noticed before we formed the company, we had many conversations in our living room about how beauty seems to be such a rare topic anymore. The appreciation of beauty, the discussion of beauty seems to be, beauty isn't an all-encompassing word, but it seems to be evaporating from our culture, our society, at a large scale in favor of antagonism, disruption, chaos. I mean, it can feel that way often, can't it? And so what we said we wanted to do was we wanted to spend the final third of our existence here in this plane or whatever it is, talking about beauty and encouraging people to take time to look at the world around them, to take it in. And in our world, it happens to the vehicle of watercolor painting. But that world is so expansive. Sculpture, music, art, drama. The arts themselves are so important. So just contributing to a show like this is a monumental thing. So take that to heart. Now we do winners, we award people, we recognize in shows like this pieces. But that doesn't mean because we've chosen this piece or that piece or even a cardinal ordering of award that any one piece is so much better than the other. Sometimes it's just degrees. One category that we're going to talk about tonight is canvas or framed art. That's a category. I know that in my notebook there were 15 pieces that I recognized. 15 pieces. I think it was 15, but it was up there. It could have been 14. But the pieces that I saw that had qualities about them that were award worthy was that great. So now we have to narrow it down to 4 pieces. That's pretty mind-blowing if you think about it. How do you pick? It's like picking. It's Sophie's Choice is what it is. Picking one over another. But I'll tell you how I do it. And I've done it like this all across this country. I do it consistently each time. And this is how I select pieces for recognition. I like to talk about it in terms of recognition. This is a very strong show. What I do is my process is I ask for the pieces to be on the perimeter walls. So when I judged, say, the Rocky Mountain Water Media Show, we had 80 pieces, I think it was. And I ask for them to be placed at the perimeter of the show so that I can enter the room, the space, stand in the middle, and just look at the entire show from one point of view, from one place. And what I'm looking for come and see moments. I'm looking for pieces that some quality of that piece says come and see, come and look. And you can see that. You just stand and you can go, okay, there's a piece. And I mark those. I make notes of those. This piece, this piece, this piece. What am I seeing? Could be color, could be design, could be execution. I'm a big proponent of the idea of shape being the foundation to everything in art. Shape is foundational in sculpture, painting. It's actually foundational in music if you think about it. The shape of music that we hear. So I'm looking for interesting shapes, first and foremost. And when I teach, I think some of the students in the room, some of the people who are taking the workshop, I don't want to call you students, you fellow artists, but are probably sick and tired of me using the word shape and talking about shape. We're going to develop the shape. But shape is so important, and how shapes are integrated into a piece, how the artist is looking for opportunities to manipulate shape or take shape and work it with another shape or against another shape to create story of some kind. So story and shape are things that you can see from a distance. Am I drawn to that piece? What is the story of this piece? Does it intrigue me? Does it stimulate my curiosity to know what the story is? Those are things I'm looking for. Execution, which a lot of people think is the key to art. A lot of people do. Some people use the word technique. Does this artist have mastery of technique? That's important, but in my list, it's down here. Almost, I think one time I counted the things that I look for, and technique or execution was like 10. It's very important, but it isn't as important as what is the story of the piece? What is the heart of the artist trying to communicate through the piece? These are critical things in the world, and we need every voice, every artistic voice expressing at whatever level they can express. We need them singing these songs. I read in a book one time, and if I really want to capture your heart with what I'm saying, because when we talk about pieces, I want you to know that these are pieces that I saw these qualities in. I read in a book, and I think it was a book called, I think I'm going to have to go do my due diligence, but I think it was called Cultural Creatives. It was a popular book in like the 90s. It was thick. It was probably somebody's PhD discourse because it reads like a discourse. But what my takeaway from the book, which is why I can't see anymore, was that this artist made a statement, and what stuck in my mind was that the creative people in the family of humanity is between 10 and 20%. You agree with that? You've heard that before? Now let's unwrap that for a minute, and then we'll get into the art. But if 10, let's just say it's 20% piece, 20% of every human being born is a cultural creative. We are the voices that tell the other 80% what we should be looking at, what we should be thinking about, what are the big ideas about life. So writers, musicians, 20%, maybe it's 10%, but let's say 20%. Isn't a really big number, is it? Now let's go back, whatever you want to say, 4,000 years, 2,000 years, 8,000 years, whatever the span of humanity is, just run some numbers. Somebody in here is a mathematician, I know. Run the numbers of humanity, how many people like us have walked this planet, and then you take 20% of that number. It's really a slim number, right? We are very important. Our voices are needed, are needed more than ever today. I want to be clear, when COVID was a raging thing in our society, and the uncertainty of the influence of COVID was what, because we didn't have an answer for it, and it was rampaging the world. Numbers were going up all the time. I wanted a technical person. I wanted a science solution to that, because I wanted to continue living, right? And it was scary. So technical or industrial technical kind of minds are important too. But if it's 20% of all of people are the people who give us the inspiration, tell us why it's important to be here. It means every voice that contributes is vital. And if it's 20%, then that means it becomes very individual, because you have your very important voice down to the most simple or the most unskilled, if you will, right? The developing artist. You have to be encouraged to keep developing the art, because we need to hear what each artist has to say. It's very individual. Piece, does that make sense? So just to hang art, I'm not doing a great job, but just to hang art in a show like this is a wonderful contribution that you're making. Now, I've selected some pieces that had come and see moments for me. I stood right here in this space or over there, and I looked at the wall, and I marked the pieces, and I made note of them. I do that because I don't want to know who the artist is. Some shows I go to are some artists that you readily would know from magazines, and very, very popular, very well known. You can tell sometimes their technique, their execution, from their execution who they are, because they have a very unique voice, unique way of saying something. But still, I look at their piece and I look for shape, story, design. How is the artist manipulating the elements of design to tell their story? It doesn't matter who they are, and I don't want to know who they are. But I pick my pieces that way. That's the pool of artists from which I'm going to limit down, or have to limit down, because there are only 4 awards per category. So only some will and some won't. But let me tell you that's how I choose the piece. And then it gets really tough, because then you have to look at each piece individually. I choose to look at each piece individually, not on the wall with the aggregate. And I look for what are the internal qualities of that art: shape, design, color, composition, and I begin to ordinally rank them. And sometimes it did in this case. There were 3 pieces that could have been, quote, in the number 1 spot. 4 pieces. So then it's like, okay, well, what other design elements? How about tone, value, color? How are the colors? It gets really, really kind of tricky. But it's a wonderful job to have, because you get to experience the art that way. That makes sense? So that's how I judge the show. And you may not think the pieces I chose, you may have a different opinion from me, and I'm okay with that. But this was my experience coming in and judging your show, and that's what I brought to this experience. Okay? So with that, let's start with recognition of the non-traditional art piece, and that piece goes to Morning Dove by Dennis. I'm sorry, Dennis, I'm not going to say your name. Congratulations, Dennis. I love this piece. Can you tell me a little bit about what the material is? Is it wood?
Yeah, the whole art form is wood. That happens to be basswood.
Uh-huh.
It's relatively stable.
I'm going to leave it set there. I got to go get the ribbons.
And the feet are cast, live bird castings, glass eyes, taxidermy.
Great. Well, I love the way, well, let me tell you what I appreciate about
Yeah.
this piece. I love the way that you are integrating the shapes and the curves of this form. I'm not going to call it what it, a bird, but I love the form, and I love the shapes and the way they integrate. That shows me a real sensitivity to the shapes that you're working with and the materials that you're working with. There's a real strong connection between the shaping of the material and the love for the material, the appreciation for the material. So that was what caught my eye, and why I chose to select this piece for that purpose.
Thank you.
When
This is a very old art form, prehistoric as a matter of fact. Man carved decoys, thank you. To hunt, assist in the hunting. The point I want to make with that, though, that has evolved to the point where now there is in national competitions a category called flat art for photographers and painters and what have you. Prize money is serious, 5-6 figures. People are executing work here that would compete in those shows.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
thank you.
Very nicely done. I love that. Now, the next category is the category called photo. And the honorable mention piece in this category is this piece back here called dance. Now, just standing from this place, I want to point out to you the composition and the design elements of this piece. First of all, I love the name and how the name relates to what's in the photograph. It does look like a dance to me, and it makes me celebrate that. And this is Nigel Clark's piece, by the way. Sorry, I forgot to name. It's the artist. But I love the way that the lines of the shore, the distant shore, and the the frontal shore lead my eye back into the piece, and then it leads me to this celebration, this dance, if you will, of the main subject. It's nicely done. And I don't take photography, so I don't know how difficult capturing an image like that. I know that when I go out into the world, my photographs are out of focus, and I'm shooting out of buses most of the time. But I really appreciate the design, the composition of this piece, and the way every element in this piece highlights the actual main shapes of the bird, and then the way that integrates into the theme of dance. It's a very celebratory piece. So that was why I gave that piece the honorable mention. Is Nigel here?
No.
No. Okay. And third place, or third position, is a photo called San Giovanni Golden Hour, which I think is over here. A piece, a painting or a photograph, an image that asks me or draws me in and makes me want to enter into that scene is very powerful. It's a very powerful image.
No, it's fine. It's not here.
It's your husband?
Yes.
And accept for
Yeah.
him.
I was looking for you.
Yes, Jordan.
Yeah.
This is his page.
Choice anyway.
Thank
Right?
you.
Yeah.
It was on our list, and he took that.
Oh,
Yes.
it is lovely.
So what I would highlight in this piece, are we gonna can we hold the piece up?
Yeah.
Let
Please.
me just make a couple of quick
Why don't you
comments.
rest it on the accounts behind Paul?
First of all,
There you go.
when we talk about design,
It's beautiful.
the design of perfection is along the idea of golden mean, or it's an ancient idea of perfect balance in a piece. The actual building, if you will, is not located in a golden mean point. But every line inside of this photograph, every curve, every vertical, brings my eye to that piece. Those are design elements. And we're taking a photograph. Those are design elements that are golden. This deal that it isn't based on golden mean, but every line, every value, every vertical, horizontal leads me to this moment of the subject. And I'm drawn to that. I want to enter into that scene. And so those are just masterful ideas that the artist is presenting to us in this image. and that's why I selected this piece.
Where is that?
It was in the Dolomites in northern Italy.
Okay.
Everything good come out of Italy.
Yeah, everything.
Second place. So that, well done. The second piece, Dreams and Memories, is over here. Richard Lewis. Is Richard here tonight?
His wife she was gonna try to get here,
So we talk about,
but she should have been here when she was gonna come.
okay, we talk about when I first was introduced to photography, I was introduced through the eye gate of Ansel Adams. And the 10-tone scale or whatever it was, I think it was 10-tone scale, which is ancient history now in terms of my life. But coming into exposure to photography through the eye gate and the understanding of Ansel Adams gave me an appreciation for tone and value, light and dark in a photograph, black and white photography. And this was during this, I won't tell you what year it was, but but during that time, color photography was coming on, but we had just come out of black and white photography into the Kodak, Kodachrome kind of era. And so it seemed like everything was going color except Ansel Adams. He was out there doing black and white, wonderful piece. When I look at this piece, I see an appreciation for black and white tone, grayscale, but I also see a powerful story. I want to know, when I stood in this room, I wanted to know what this person's experience in life was. What is this person thinking? What are they looking at? And I'm drawn to that, almost like the girl with the pearl earring, kind of an effect. What is that all about? That I see those same elements of story in this piece that drew me to it. That's why I awarded that piece. The technical execution is there, but the design elements and the story are there in that piece. That's why we gave that its place in tonight's story. The first position was Spirit of the Roaring Twenties, which is over here. Now this piece, by contrast to that piece, is a color piece. It looks like it's been manipulated in software. But what I love about this piece is the coloration. It's rich and deep, and this is Greg Coleman's piece. What I love about this piece is I love the design of the way the main figures are coordinated and laid out and arranged inside this piece. There's a real nice, strong rhythm to the placement of the main subject, and there's almost some kind of an internal story on each face that's different. And I want to know what that story is. I can make up my story, and sometimes you would want to know what you know what I'm saying. It's like there's an impish grin, or there's some kind of story behind each one of them. And as I looked at this piece, I was drawn to the color, drawn to the design. Look at the strong diagonal lines of the table that they're sitting on that lead to their costumes. Their costumes are brightly colored, up into the faces where the story is really told. And I just think it's a really nice, configured, designed, and executed photograph. So that was why we gave that piece the first place. Very nicely done. That moves us into the framed or canvas category. And again, I told you I had, in my notebook, I had several pieces that I noted as I was making the selection. This category was very difficult because there are wonderful things about each framed painting, framed piece. But here's what I chose and why I chose it. I chose this piece over here called Phi, P-H-I, am I saying that right? What I loved about this piece, I'm going to start with this piece. This is Eddie Spaghetti Art. Is Eddie Spaghetti Art here? Eddie, okay. You're a printmaker, right? Yes. Well, you do printmaking.
Love to hear that.
Yeah. But what I love about this piece is I love, first of all, the execution of the I'm calling it printmaking. I'm probably not. Okay. but I love the whimsy of this piece. I love the way you made a two-dimensional piece of art into three-dimensional by incorporating the wound spring, what is the, I walk these spirals. I get, what is it? Yeah, labyrinth. I love the labyrinth feel of this kind of idea that's physically executed in the piece. It's not only a come and see piece, it's a come and touch. It's a come and experience piece. So it has an added component to it of kinetic art, but it sits in a frame. And so I just was really intrigued, loved your use of color, subject, and that's why I picked this piece as the as one of our award winners tonight, the honorable mention. Well
Come up
done.
here and get a picture with that.
Well done. Yeah. All right, thank you. That's a delightful moment. The third place goes to Spring is Sprung. It's over here, I believe.
Here's the ribbon. Oh.
It's over here. Let me just lift this up. Now, this is a, I think it's an acrylic piece if I have that right. What I love about this is,
Right here.
oh, Holly, really? I'm nervous, so I didn't even read my own writing. Anyway, I love this piece. Here's what I love about this piece. Spring is Sprung. The name, I think it's very important to have a name that talks about the story of the painting. I think of spring as in Colorado we have a different spring than you have here. We have multiple springs in Colorado because we'll have a spring and then the next day we'll get 3 feet of snow and then we'll have another spring. But what I love about the way you're expressing shape in this piece, the way you're using color, there's texture in this piece. Look at the textures that are in this piece. I just love the way that there's this movement just by the way you're using the paints. And then these little shapes that are popping up from this amalgam of color and energy at the bottom. These shapes are just popping out of the ground. Is that not spring? I mean, do you not experience spring that way? Like one moment I walk out my front door and there's nothing, and then there's this beautiful crocus that just came out of the ground. And so you captured the idea so well. Your color use is just masterful. And the textures of this piece just really drew my eye from across the room. So congratulations, this wonderful piece. First in this category is a piece called Red.
Second.
Okay, I went past that. Thank you. So this second place is Dragonfly Dancer. It's right here. And this is by artist Sandy Smith. Sandy, great job. Good job. Let's talk about this piece. I love this piece. So first of all, let's talk about story, and now I'll talk about design. The colors of this piece are so joyful. Dragonfly Dancer. Dragonflies are one of my favorite summertime insects. I just could sit and watch them forever. But the colors of this piece are just so inviting and bright, and from across the room, this was one of the first pieces I saw. And it really did, it was like, I've got to go see that piece. So color and execution are really well done in this piece. But let's look at design. In this piece, this can be too much for you to hold, I see the strong cruciform, if you will, kind of design. So these darks lead me to this central area here, and then these darks, and then these bright colors give me a sense of cruciform. Cruciform is a very strong design compositional method. It's one of the most bulletproof because it says, here's what you should look at. It doesn't give the viewer much of a space to kind of go off on their own little thing. It says, no, right here. And then you've got this wonderful circle that's right around all of that energy that is in the core of your story. But the textures and the execution of color and shape, all of this, all of these energetic lines, they all support that central idea. That's all good design. Very good design. But the color really just jumped off the wall. So that's why I gave this. Okay. I'm hoping I'm not going on too much.
No, you're not.
First place is K Gray in this category. It's a small little piece right over here. Is Kay here?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Let's really enjoy this piece. Everything about this piece is about the wren. I love the way that you use the frame, and the frame is done differently. It's got these little posts up top here, but to me it just screams birdhouse, right? Or habitat, right? It says something to me about the idea of the wren. And you have the feather attached up there, which is a physical, I don't know if it's an actual wren feather. It's not. It's not. Okay. But
Sure it is.
But that little thing that's offset from the actual painting reinforces the whole idea of wren and how delicate a wren is, because this flower is so delicate. We haven't even gotten into the painting yet, and already we're joyfully experiencing the story of this piece. And then right in the center here, we have this delightful little rendition of this little beautiful bird that wants nothing more to enjoy this universe. And that's what it lives for. I don't even know what they eat or how, but
They fuss a lot.
they do fuss. But I love watching them on my ground or in my backyard. And so this piece, even though it's small in scale, has this giant message for us to appreciate. How can you look at this piece and not be warmed in your heart, in the center of your soul? That is what art is about. Is one person, one human being communicating these wonderful ideas to another. Congratulations, a wonderful job. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that beautiful?
And this is Richard's wife, Lewis's wife. She had to work. She got here as fast as she could, but he's the one that did the fantastic man behind.
Very, very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Sue. So now we move into two more awards. The West Virginia Watercolor Society Best Watercolor Award goes to Keeping a Record, and that goes to Susan Witt. It's over here. So let's just take a moment and enjoy this piece. I'm going to work from the inside out again, or outside in, with this piece, just like I did Wren. Because your choice of frame and your choice of background support or mat, or however you want to think about this, just really pushes the eye into the piece, doesn't it? And then when I'm done, or when I get pushed into the piece, I'm not disappointed. Look at the colors in this. They're just rich, and the design of the piece, we don't have static anything in this piece. And it's keeping a record. Inside here are just some visual notes and some hints to us. Gold. I don't know what the gold refers to. I can interpret that for myself, but that's the beauty of it. I can interpret it for myself. You can have a different interpretation. But design in this piece, look at these supporting shapes on the outside. These green blocks of shape, they push and support the work that's being done on the inside. This is another cruciform design. Cruciform, like I said earlier, is a very strong compositional way to say something. And right here at the crux of the meeting of the two cruciform elements is the message of the painting. But it's not centered, it's off-centered. I engage that message over here. This is well done, well designed. Look at the way you use color around that idea, that word, that language that you have out here. These lines coming into that, these patterns, leading my eye to your message. Well done. It's just a beautiful piece. and it just explodes off the frame, doesn't it? And again, it's one of those from across the room. You're drawn to it. You're affected by the piece. You haven't even engaged the piece. That's well done. That's why I gave you. Now here's the one, best of show, and this is Elizabeth Festick. Did I say that right? Elizabeth, come on up. Now this was, congratulations.
I think so.
Nicely done.
It's the one over here.
Yes, this one over here. I'll just walk over this way and point to it. Here, come with me. Here's what I love. I talked to you at the very beginning about shape. I'm going to walk up to the piece actually. First of all, when I saw this piece, I love the unity of color that you have inside this painting. It's a print, monoprint, right? And I love the way you have integrated color. Even the grays work so well with this piece. It reminds me of a Matisse painting or print, either one, because of the way you're handling shape. To me, he was a shape painter, color also, but his ideas, I think, were mostly about shape, fluidity of shape. I mean, the way he handled the human form, like you were doing in this piece. But there's a story here. It's called Holding Back. Water is Life. Water is Life, Pushback. I want to make sure I get the name right. But I love the idea of this big shape pushing back this, if you will, uncontrollable force, or the attempt to. And isn't that, I don't know if this is your intent, but this is what it said to me. Isn't that what life is? I mean, we spend most of our life engaging in things that are so much bigger than us, so many ideas, or just the finality of life, that we have to, each one of us is going to engage that. That's a big idea, isn't it? And we can't run away from it. And I love the fact that this figure is engaging these shapes. But look at how these shapes are, if you will, trying to invade or pushing against the force of this life form, of this life force. And then the interweaving of all of this motion, of this yellow that's underneath all this, the patterns. It's just so rich in pattern and story that I was immediately attracted to it, and I could not stop engaging this piece. And that to me is what separates, say, a best of show, if you will, from the other pieces. And this piece is the best of show here. Again, there might be a moment tomorrow where I might not be quite as drawn to this message, but every day I've come in here and looked at this piece, and that's why I chose this piece, because of its power of story, power of design, and power of message. Now, I interpret it with my message. You have your own message in the creation of this piece, but I think that is one of the beauties of art. As an artist, I create pieces and I have my intent to the piece. When I do a painting, I'm just going to talk a little bit. When I do a painting, I leave little bits and areas of the painting unfinished. I call them areas of where the viewer comes in, has the opportunity to complete the painting. It's called viewer completion. And I've painted that way for decades. But there's something about the painting. Those are the contact points for the viewer, for the piece, for the person, the entity that the artist is creating the piece for. They first of all are creating a piece for themselves, but there's always a communal aspect to art. There's a reciprocal process. I say something, but I want you to say something back. I want you to engage it and say something back. This piece is laden. Do you agree with that? I think this piece has all of that, and that's what separates it or makes it a wonderful statement in this moment. So these were my thoughts. Congratulations, great. These are my thoughts. These are the things. these are the things that I thought about and saw as I looked at your art. There are wonderful stories on this wall, so please take time to engage each one of them. Wonderful execution, wonderful stories, but these were the ones that I worked up to being exemplary of the show. Thank you again.
Thank you. If you'll leave me your names on your card so that everyone can